Hello everyone, this is Christian Sasse again on SassePhoto. Today we've got an interesting show. It's not over the web. I've got a live person next to me and you're going to meet him very soon. It's somebody you have met before, talking a lot about eagles. So it's very exciting. So it's Friday again, it's 1st of June. So yeah, do ask lots of questions. As David says, there are no such thing as controversial questions for him, so go and test him. So I'll see you all in a moment. Okay. Hello everyone and welcome. I'm just going to adjust the screen here a little bit. It's moved a bit, so there we go. So we're here live and I've got the pleasure of David Hancock here. So he's real, as you can see. This is not a fake person. I've done some jokes here before.
Oh, you've been misusing me, have you?
I've done some jokes. So anyway, I'm really pleased that David was so kind and has jumped in. He's got an incredibly interesting project, and we always look for interesting things. So he does, as you know, David is a very well-known eagle biologist. He's gone right before the time, you've heard him many times talking about the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the way he was so involved in the whole increase of eagles and their well-being, right? And
well, I certainly was hopeful for it, and,
yes.
and it's happened.
And it's happened. So it's wonderful, and so wonderful to see so many of you. So I can welcome all of you. I see Osprey Mama too, and I see Wobbies, and of course my team. I see Jenny, Sasha. Thank you for all being here, and don't hesitate to ask controversial questions. You know, he loves a fight, so we're going to have that. But anyway, this is going to be fun. So what I thought we're going to start off with is I will show you a clip, because this is a project that David has been pursuing for a long time, but it took a long time to raise funds and so on. So you'll learn a lot more about that. But I thought, as an introduction, I will just make us small, and I'm going to switch to one of my other screens. And I would just like to show you this. And let's hope this works with the sound. Sorry, we have some audio problems. Not sure what's happening here. 1 second. Yeah, I'm sorry, there are some audio problems. I'm just going to try and fix it. I'm not sure what happened there, so let me give it another try. Just hang on, please. No, it's not working. Weird. Okay.
Oh, the sound is not transmitting?
Yeah, it's something strange here.
I'll re-narrate it.
Wait a second. Something went wrong here. Sorry, I've got a bit of technical problems, but it's not. I'll tell you what. It's okay. What I'm going to do now instead is I'm going to bring in. Let me just do this quickly. I'm going to bring us back in here, and I'm going to instead just show some pictures. And I think in the meantime, I will try and fix this. So I hope the audio's back now. But anyway, David, can you give a little bit of background about the project, and I'll show a few pictures here.
Sure, I can talk about the Beta project and the Eagle. Yeah. If you want to work on that, I'll just talk to the people.
Because you go ahead.
And I won't create any controversial topics. We're going to deal with the Canadian bald eagle. Some people used to call it the American bald eagle, but as we're not being controversial, this is the Canadian bald eagle.
Right.
Now, I've been following this bird since 1953. Is when I, 52, I got my first eagle, as some of these people know. Since I've been following birds for, 65-something years, the big question has always been, we get so many birds here in southern British Columbia, probably here in the Fraser Valley where we are right now, we estimate we get maybe 30, 35,000, maybe more birds passing through here every year. Where do they come from? I mean, if we have the world's largest concentration of eagles, it seemed pretty obvious that we should be finding something out about where they came from. The second thing is, we have one of the biggest populations, densest populations of breeding eagles. Here in the valley, within a 30-mile radius of where we're sitting, I've got nearly 500. I got 480 pairs within 50-mile radius of us here. So that's one of the biggest, densest populations of eagles in the world. And where do they go to? The thing is, when the breeding season is over, they will all leave here at the end of July, first week of August, and they won't appear again until early October. So we have this dilemma. We receive the world's largest number of eagles in the wintertime of anybody. We have the biggest breeding population, and we don't know where our breeders go to when they leave here, and we don't know where all of our other eagles are coming from. So our foundation is kind of finally set a responsibility. If we are the host of all this huge population of eagles, we better learn something about it. And so that's what the Beta project, B-E-T-A, Bald Eagle Tracking Alliance.
There it is. I'm just going to zoom that in.
And it is simply is trying to track these birds. Within this case, they have wearing a backpack, recording their GPS data, where they are, at a minimum of every 4 hours, every daylight hour. So in the winter, we capture about 3 or 4 locations of where they were every day. Birds that we now find, some of them are going into the high Arctic, where, of course, it's already 24 hours of daylight. So we're going to be getting 6 recordings every day. And now, what is fascinating about this, and some of your listeners are bound to have had kids, they know when you give your kid a cell phone, you expect them to be calling home. And that's exactly what we're expecting with our eagles. When we've given them a backpack, it has a cell phone in it. We have their cell phone number, they have ours, and they can call us every 4 hours. We can call them and say, oh, now we would like you to call us every 5 minutes. And we've done this for a couple of birds. If we want to know detailed observations of where they're going, for example, what are their feeding territories in a particular day, or what are the territorial limits that they're covering in a week, we can change the timing of how often they tell us, they call us back and say, we every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes or every 4 hours, we know exactly where they have been.
And who pays for this? Who pays for the phone call?
Well, the phone call is certainly an expense. if we only do about 4 phone calls a day,
Right.
I'm sorry, 1 phone call, but 4 locations
Right,
a day,
right.
it costs us about $300 a year to keep track of them. If we turned around and asked them to send home a note every hour
Yes,
or
right,
every
right.
5 minutes, we could be talking about paying $1,000 a
Right.
year to hear where our kids are. But we have them on a default of every 4 hours, and then when we find a bird that is working in a particular area that we want to know, gee, what really is this all about? What is it doing? Then we can phone it and say, please send us information on your locations more frequently. So it's up to us.
Understood. So David, are there any surprise? When did you start this, and what is all this map about? We see some lines.
They're looking
here.
at that, yes.
Yes, that's what they're looking at. Yes.
The ones that are parents are going to find this kind of interesting. If you look at this map, and I guess I can't touch it, can
Yes,
I?
you can.
Okay,
You can
it's
touch it.
alive? Well,
You can.
when
You can.
going south and a little bit east from
Yeah.
where
You
the
wanna zoom
pink
in?
where the pink dot. No, I wanted to move it up a bit. I
Okay.
wanted to look at the bottom part.
Wait a second.
Where it goes down on the bottom part. That's it. That's good. We're down here. If they look at this map,
Like that.
and yes, and they see that there's a blue line
1 second.
going south. There's a blue line.
Yes.
It went south. Now this is the first bird we put a tracker on.
Right.
So the first bird was, of course, not just exciting from our point of view, but Miles and I, it was the first one we'd actually put trackers
who's
on.
Miles?
Miles is
You have
my
to
associate.
explain, yes. Okay.
Miles works with us
Right.
on this project. He's in a sense going to oversee the basic banding. I'm looking over the trap, but looking after the trapping and have caught the birds. Miles is going to oversee all the tracking. Now, the interesting thing here was we put this tracker on our first tracker on our first bird, and the first day it went and stayed around the Vancouver landfill, which is where we trapped it. And the next morning, just after it phoned in, I went to the landfill, and sure enough, I refound the bird and took a photograph of it sitting up in a tree.
Right.
The next day, it went into White Rock.
Okay.
Which is right where you did your whole book.
And this
about
was an
White Rock.
adult, right? This
This was
was
an adult eagle.
Okay.
It went to
Okay.
White Rock. The next day, of all things, it went to Bellingham, Washington, about
Right.
50 miles south into the United States. Now, this is not to be expected because at that time of year, which was February the 10th, I think, 11th and 12th, we're talking about, all our birds are already on their territories. Eagles to the south are already on their breeding territory.
Right.
So when we trapped this bird, why did it go south? The third day, when it arrives at Bellingham, Washington, we think, well, now where is it going to go? It doesn't phone in the next day.
Well, that's
now,
not
if
good.
you've got kids, you know this is serious
They
stuff.
never phone in when they should.
And
right?
not only did it not phone in the next day, it didn't phone in for a week, and we're beside ourselves wondering what is our eagle doing. This is our first one.
Did he have a name?
No, for some reason I've never named birds.
Okay.
But
Okay.
the point was, it's our number one kid. And why doesn't it call in? Did we do something wrong in putting the tracker on? This is the first time we've used this technology. Is the tracker no longer working?
Right.
31 days, I think it was,
Right.
after it quit talking to us, it all of a sudden phones home and downloads a signal to 4 times or 5 times a day for every place that it's been in the 31 days.
Goodness. So it was stored on
It was storing the data as it was supposed to do.
Right.
It was only us that lost faith in all this. It was doing exactly...
And there was sunshine or something. There was some... Or was it
No,
self-transmission?
what it was, the bird
Right.
had gone in just east of Bellingham, up in the coast mountains. It flew down a valley to the Columbia River, the big, deep Columbia River gorge, and a little side inlet. And it stayed there, feeding, probably on some fish, but possibly also on afterbirth from cows that were giving birth at that time.
Right.
And it wasn't in cell tower range, see, so it couldn't send a phone to us.
Right, so there was no...
every day.
Of course, there are large portions that are completely...
No cell.
There's the rural and there's no cell coverage.
And
right.
this technology tries once a day to call us, but it tries 3 times. And if it doesn't get you, it just stores the data, and the next day it tries again. but it keeps storing the GPS readings of where it is. So when it finally did make contact 31 days later, it downloaded 120 or 30 places where it had been in all that time. So we were incredibly relieved that here our first kid, not only had to kind of let us down a bit, but now he phoned in and he gave us all the data. So we learned exactly where it had been.
Okay, David, we've got some questions coming in. Thank you so much, everyone, for sending some questions. So I see a question here from Susan North. Hi, Susan. I've spoken to Susan before. Does the tracker give you the locations of where it's going to? Yes, obviously it does.
Well, it's the location of where it was the moment that it's recording its time. I mean,
it has a timestamp. Yes,
it's a timestamp and a GPS coordinate, latitude and longitude of where it is.
Okay.
It collects a bit of other data as well. It records something about the movement of the bird, which is designed that if the bird died, then you would know it's not just staying in the same location, but that the temperature, which is also recording the bird's temperature, you see that
it's recording the bird's temperature.
It's recording the temperature at the back of the tag. So you know that if the bird is alive, it's not at 10 degrees below, which the outdoor temperature might be. It's above that, say. So it tells you this is another method of learning that the bird is still alive. So and
let me add another question. Here's Beach Girl 75 again. Hello. How are the trackers powered? Is it solar or batteries? Yes. A very important question, actually.
Well, it's both. It's got a battery.
It's got a battery, yes.
And the battery is solar powered.
That's right.
On the back of it, and you haven't showed it yet.
Yeah, I will do that. I will do it.
It is a section, not quite an inch, about 7/8 of an inch long by almost 2 inches.
Right.
One of these images shows the...
I will do that. 1 second.
Yeah, it's that opening image of Miles holding the bird.
No, that's not that one. It's this one here.
Yeah. So this tiny little solar pack needs sun, of course.
Right.
And it's designed that, of course, if there's enough sun, it stores these latitude and longitudes. It may run out of power, but it still has that data recording. And then when it does get enough power, because it was back in sunlight, or as several, we haven't got to that really yet, but 3 of our birds have gone to Alaska. One of them, we believe, has gone all the way to the North Slope. So that bird, we suspect, if it is on the North Slope, it's getting 24-hour sunlight. So it has a lot of power, and it's recording.
You can actually see it here. Yeah, I just moved it a bit forward, the film.
Yeah, and there's the length of the backpack.
There you can see the length of the backpack. It's very small.
It's very small. It's about 3/4 of an inch, or 7/8 of an inch by 2 inches.
Right.
Not very big, but enough to send these messages back home. So, I mean, it's from my point of view, this is kind of awesome, because I've been waiting for 65 years to find out where do our birds go and come from. And we're beginning to get some answers. 3 of them are now in Alaska.
And David, let me ask you some more questions. They're just rolling in now. People are really excited about this.
Okay.
Glenn Hazelwoody is asking, hi Glenn Hazelwoody, you've had her many times on the show. What information surprised you most? That's a great question. So, what is it?
Well, after the first day of landing the first bird, being able to go and see the bird at the landfill, and the location it gave, I went and had that latitude and longitude, and I went to where that tree was, and I looked up, and there was the bird. So that's a bit reassuring. I mean, the first surprise about things, about technology, is, does the darn thing work? and it was kind of rewarding the very first day to go to the tree and look up, and not only did I see the eagle, I took a picture and I could see the backpack. Then about 3 days later, it disappears.
Right.
So that was the next really big thing about learning. You have to have faith in this equipment, because 31 days later, even though it quit talking to us, it re-signed in when it got to another cell tower. And so I guess those 2 lessons were, number one, this technology is really pretty good, does exactly what it says. So I have a kind of faith from this, that we are going over the year to learn a lot about the movements of these birds.
Yeah, and you know, it's very interesting. Here comes a question exactly on the line from Anne-Marie D. Have you lost eagles in deaths or so? And if so, do those losses occur shortly after the backpacks have been added? That's quite an interesting question.
Well, it's a good question. And there have been, in our case, we haven't yet.
Right, okay.
So, but this is our first year.
Yeah, okay.
But there are
but
other...
what about your friend who...
Sure.
Yeah, maybe you can elaborate.
Well, there are, first off, I'll tell you, there are two basic different technologies. Our technology, because it's a bit more economical to buy it, is cell phone technology.
Right.
The other, technology is talking to a satellite.
Okay.
Where it sends the signal every day, or whatever the frequency is, up to the satellite. Now, the challenge there is you pay for every transmission back and forth from the bird to the satellite. So while it may cost you about $3,000 or $4,000 for the backpack, you can spend $5,000 or $6,000 a year on getting the messages back.
Right, right.
In our technology, we pay about $3,000 for the technology of the backpack, but we only pay about $300 to find out, to be able to track it for the whole year. No,
for the whole
year.
Oh, well, that's a good.
So
plan.
there's a huge saving. I mean, if you do a bird with satellite tracking, and you're thinking, I'm going to be able to follow this bird for 5 years, you're talking $25,000 commitment every time you track a bird. Well, that's a pretty huge investment. I mean, it's bad enough. We bought 8 trackers. We put 5 on. We have 3 more, and I'm going to put those on hopefully over the next couple of weeks. And I want to trap now local breeding adults, so that we can track where do our adults, some of them at least, where are they going to go?
And that's exactly the next question from Susan North again. How far do they fly or migrate? Great question. That's what you want to know, right?
But it's exactly what we want to know. But it's 2 ways. It's where do our breeding birds, who if this is their residence, where are they going to go when they leave here? And we haven't got any of our local birds yet tracked. I mean, not our breeders.
Okay.
The birds we trapped during the winter were migrants from the north, it appears, because they've gone back north. 3 of them are in Alaska. 1 of them is up in the Northwest Territories in central Canada. And it's on, if they want to look up an interesting place, it's called Great Slave Lake. They can see it on our website, where this bird is, on Great Slave Lake. This is up in the center of the Great Taiga, the boreal forest that runs right around the entire world at these mid-latitudes. Most of Canada is either tundra, no trees, or it's where you get trees, and they're taiga. They're spruce and larch. Some of them are larch. And that goes right around Canada, Asia, and Europe. And that's where our other bird is at the moment. It's in the taiga around Great Slave Lake, which we understand. We've phoned, Miles phoned up a couple of people at the nearby community where it is, and they think there's spawning, I think there's squawfish or something, and it's living on that. But it also, interesting enough, as several of these birds have done, they find the local landfill.
Of course they do.
Everywhere.
They're scavengers, right?
They're scavengers. So the ones in Alaska, they've gone from one landfill going up and down the coast.
This is not
to the
what
next
people
landfill.
Want to. This is not how people like to see eagles, of course.
Yeah, that's where you go to find them. Go to the landfill.
Well, that's us. There are so many. Thank you for all the great questions. So many pouring in now, which is really wonderful. So next question here from. Well, I hope I get this right. Kindle Cats. Oh, yes, I know you. B and Gold. I remember you from Wednesday. Yes. How long do you track each eagle? How long do you track? Yes.
We've only just got started. We put the first tracker on February the 9th, and we just put a few on because the breeding season was starting, and we didn't want to catch a local eagle when it might be in the process of laying eggs. And there was thousands. The week we were trapping, there was about 3,000 eagles at the local landfill.
Yes.
And those are not local eagles,
Right.
obviously. Those are predominant eagles coming out of somewhere, from somewhere else, because that's more eagles than we have locally. So our hope is the technology that we're using is advertised as lasting 4 to 5 years, maybe 6.
Oh, 4 to 5, so long. Wow, there you go. That's an interesting point, right?
To answer your question, we're hopeful to track these birds as long as the technology keeps generating power and sending a signal to the telephone company.
And now comes an interesting question from Sherry M. I actually was waiting for this question, and here it comes. Do these trackers bother or hurt the eagles, and how are they attached? Very critical question.
Well, certainly, and it's a prime concern to any researcher.
Right.
I mean,
absolutely.
The first thing, you have to catch the bird.
Yes.
And I have spent a lifetime as trapping different birds and animals for one reason or another, and it's the biologist's prime concern that you don't hurt the animal.
There you go. And I know David does that. I've seen.
Yeah, and the real thing is with birds, because I started out as a bird fancier and a falconer and so on, you learn that 1 or 2 damaged feathers is crucial to the life of that bird. So having come from that kind of environment, I'm particularly sensitive to how you handle a bird to make sure it isn't got some
and how
permanent...
is it attached? That's the main
So
thing.
then that's the next thing. So the first thing is the concern of trapping a bird that it doesn't get hurt, doesn't dash up break them.
Break them, right.
Feathers are incredibly flexible, but if they break, then they have to get eventually molted out and replaced. So the next thing is, how is the transmitter attached?
That's right.
Well, somebody said, well, do you just drill a hole through the bird? No, we don't. We don't. We actually put the harness on with a set of crossed thongs, in a sense. It's a nylon.
Oh, you can see it a little bit here, right?
It's a nylon, very thin. It's almost 1/4 of an inch wide band, not quite 1/4 of an inch wide, and it makes a cross band across the breast and across the back. And the harness is fixed.
It's fixed. You can see a little bit.
It's the center of the back by adjusting the.
And that takes quite a long time. I've seen this.
It took us maybe 45 minutes, an hour on the first one to get. I mean, we had to learn the technique. We've gone out and practiced with other people, but doing it entirely yourself, you just have to be more sure of everything. So it took us a little longer. By the time we got to the 5th one that we put on, we were putting them on faster.
Right.
So your questions are really right on point. It's what every biologist concerns himself with. Is the impact of the biologist going to be a negative impact on the study of the bird? And many people have banded big birds, eagles, cranes, herons, storks. These are all big, but they've banded small birds as well. But they particularly banded big birds with exactly this same technology. So we were pretty assured from the different studies that have been done that the basic technology, the concept of putting this cross harness, which we as we're putting it on, we make sure it gets next to the body so that the feathers are up and over it and so on, and that it sits on the bird as comfortably as we think we can get it. I mean, I would be joking or misleading you if I was trying to say that because we can't be sure how comfortable it is to the bird, but you can make kind of, I think, valid assumptions. There's one of the birds. There's Miles.
Just before the release, yes.
Just before the release.
Yes.
Yeah, and this bird also has bands. You can see by Miles' hand, the bird is also wearing an aluminum band.
By the way,
that has a permanent number on. I mean, a number that is registered with the federal government.
So I just wanted to add my small part here, because I filmed this and CTV actually took my footage. But I remember after Miles and you let the bird go, I remember driving back home. Driving back north, back north home. And I remember the bird was flying next to me for quite a long time. It was incredible. Yeah, really beautiful. And then it went higher and higher until I couldn't see it anymore. So it was a really incredible.
I didn't even know.
Yeah,
that.
It was an incredible experience. Actually,
It was spiritual. No, I mean.
Well, whatever. It was a good experience.
It was a good experience.
But because I mean, we spent the whole day with this bird, right?
Yeah.
So
those are my sandhill cranes
great,
in the background.
and they've seen this in the broadcast.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to get some more questions, and some of them are repeats, so we don't have to. I'm just going to mention them. So this is more as an acknowledgement. So again, Kindle cats being gold. How long do you track these eagles? So we said that for the next 5 years. Beach goes,
well, we hope.
And we hope that is the target, yes. And Beach Goes 75, are the trackers powered solar or batteries? We said both, yes. So again, wait, Lillian 168. How long do the trackers last? I think we said that. Does the tracker eventually fall off? No, it doesn't fall off, right? And then when it stops working, no, it's not. It's not.
No, it isn't designed to actually fall off, but it will fall off if any one of the four bands, four straps breaks, rots or whatever. Then it will fall off. That's the concept.
Yes. But it should not. It's not like not like a nylon piece for fishing that really hurts the bird.
We don't think so. I mean, of all the birds that have been done, and they've now been using this technology for about 20 years. Not the same cell phone technology, because they had other types of trackers. I mean, the satellite tracker fits on the same way, and if you didn't know the difference, you might not know the difference between a satellite tracker and a cell phone tracker, or a VHS tracker, which I was putting trackers on birds back in the 60s when I did my
But they must have been
thesis.
big at that time, right?
They weren't much bigger, but the problem was, after the day that I put them on in the 1960s, and I followed them that day, and I even got in my airplane, because I had a boat and an airplane with me when I was doing it. I got to follow them that day, and then never once did I ever find one of the birds again. The technology was so imprecise in the sense that it was direct line of sight, VHS transmission. And in that West Coast country, there's so many islands, mountains, trees that I could never get a signal. Where here they're talking to us, they're recording their data by getting 3 satellites to say, yes, here I am, here's my latitude and longitude. But then they make this cell phone contact, and to satellites going by overhead, the cell phone, or not necessarily, to points where the cell phones are. So it's not dependent on line of sight that where we're looking, have to look directly at the bird.
Which is good.
Well, it makes it so much more efficient.
Okay, and let's get some more here. Kathy Santoro. Did you have any problems getting your project approved? That's a great question, assuming that Canada has restrictions like we have in the States. What a good question.
Well, no, the biggest problem was raising the funds. I mean, the project itself, we did all, it took a year of applying for all the different levels of approval. We're doing this through Simon Fraser University and through the provincial government, which, unlike if the caller is an American, they think of the bald eagle in America as being a federal bird. In Canada, the bald eagle is a provincial or state bird.
And you have to explain what you mean by that, yes.
Well, it means kind of what it says. In Canada, birds of prey are controlled by each province individually. In the United States, the provinces gave up the right, or the states gave up the right to administer birds of prey individually by each state, and they turned that over to the federal government. That did not happen in Canada. And so in Canada, we had to get provincial permits. We also had to get federal permits, so there was extra permits to get. In this case, for the bands. The bands are controlled federally. the health of animals has both a that you have to pass and have your project approved, has to have a provincial approval, but it also, because you're putting a federal ban on, it has to have. Yes. So we actually went through more criteria on the Canadian side, I think, than they do on the American side. Because they just have, yes.
Well, that's a good answer.
But it just. We were all happy. I mean, it was a process. Everything had to be examined. We had to show that there had been studies done that didn't have negative impacts on the birds and so on and so forth. And so that was all part of our background research.
And okay, next question, Maxine Wirth. Hi, Maxine. Good to have you again. What is the weight of the packs, and how are the eagles affected over time with this weight? Right. So. Well,
of course, now I've forgotten what the packs are, but they're pretty minuscule. There's a whole formula, and we went through all of this at the time. It doesn't matter whether you're tracking a hummingbird or whether you're tracking a finch or a dove or a turkey or an eagle. The backpack can only be a certain tiny percentage of the bird's total weight.
Right.
And that's exactly what we have. Now, there's not much to these today. It's all in the chip.
Right.
The chip is what records the latitude and the longitude. No longer do our birds have, as in even 10 years ago, or in some technology, our birds do not have a big whip antenna hanging out the back. Some people, if they followed our website over the years, know that at our landfill, I have been able to photograph other people's birds. In this case, they were birds that came from California, 2 of them, where I photographed them at the landfill. And while they've had a marker on their wing patch, which we don't do, we don't need to. They also had hanging out the back, going down their tail, about a 14-inch little piece of wire, 11-piece, 12-4, depending on the size of the bird, from the backpack as an antenna. Technology has so changed. Our antenna, there is an antenna, of course, but it's wrapped around that little solar panel on the outside. So it doesn't have to have now an antenna hanging out the back. So it's quite marvelous technology. I mean, so as I who spend a lifetime...
The video's working, by the way, now.
Good. So
it's very nice.
Yes, so there's the backpack. It sticks up on the back a bit, so that it's above the feathers.
Now they can see it very clearly. That's very nice.
And it's actually got a design in it, so when the bird is flying along, it's kind of streamlined. You want the back, the actual solar panel up above where the feathers would be. So there it is. That's the backpack.
Okay, next question. Let's have a look. Oh, this is a great question. Christy H. You know, this relates to a lot of the discussions we've had before. She's asking, where are the eagles going? What parasites are they picking up and where?
Well, where they're going, of course, is at the root of our study. We want to know where the 35,000 eagles or so that we get coming into the Fraser. And we may find that there's going to be a lot more than that, because I think there's 35,000 coming this way, and there's probably another 30 or so thousand going in the other direction. Anyway, so
we'll show that one again.
Finding the actual path of these birds that's a big part of the study. The other interesting thing is, and she talked about parasites, when we catch the bird, we go over every bird quite carefully looking for parasites. Parasites are very, very species specific. A parasite that will live on an eagle will basically only live on an eagle. It wouldn't live on a red-tailed hawk, or it wouldn't live on a duck, or it wouldn't live on a pigeon.
That's interesting.
So when they catch prey, the parasites they could get off the prey doesn't usually have the ability to live on the predator, or in this case, the eagle.
Yes.
But it's an interesting thing. We are collecting the parasite samples, but what we're also collecting is little samples of 2 feathers up in the primaries, way up at the top part of the wing, underneath the secondaries. We take a little clipping of feathers, which of course is dead material, so the bird doesn't even know it's being cut off. This is for isotope studies, so we can determine about the heavy metals, and we're also about pesticides. And so we're going to build up a database over time because we will eventually know when, and the when will relate to a where, because we'll have tracking as this bird was in around Prince Rupert, for example, when it grew this primary feather. We will know that because we know what the molt pattern is and so on. So down the line, we are going to be able to link in a kind of bigger history of what parts of North America are contaminated with what pesticides, what heavy metals, and so on. Now, that's a long time project to build up that database, but that's in part what we're starting.
And you know, it's interesting, here comes a comment from Osprey Mama, who we've met in the States, very nice in Florida. Hi, Osprey Mama. So David is like Rob B., who does the same on Osprey, called Osprey Tracks, right?
Yes, yes.
So you know about this,
yes.
right? Oh, that's
and
good.
Ospreys, of course, they're even more migratory than bald eagles. I mean, they're even much more worldwide in their coverage. They're on every continent except Antarctica, and they used to be on Antarctica. And it's the same basic osprey, where as far as the fish eagle is concerned, each continent has its own fish eagle. Asia, Europe has a couple or three or four. There's some southern ones as well. So while we believe that these eagles will be going the full length of half the length at least of North America. We already see that. We know from a friend of mine, Nick Smith, who's been banding birds in the center of Louisiana, or on the southern coast of Louisiana, I should say. All 9 of the birds that he put satellite trackers on, by the end of June of the year he put the trackers on, all 9 birds crossed the Canadian border. I mean, it's kind of marvelous. They went all the way from the southern Gulf Coast, all the way up, 1 to British Columbia, 1 or 2 to Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Ontario. And I think 1 went into...
And I just have to relate that to Beach Girl 75's next question, which is exactly to this point. It would be interesting to have a mated pair with trackers to see where each of them is going. You know, so that's...
Well, and whoever you are, you're right on. And wouldn't it be even more marvelous than to have trackers on their kids, so that we knew where they went? Because the one thing we do know about our eagles, Ma and Pa have a really good way of teaching their kids to go on their own. They abandon them at about 7 or 8 days after they've learned to fly. The adults go off and abandon them, and the kids then go off 6 or 7 more days later on their own. They're not guided by their parents at all. They go off on their own. And so they are having to learn a migratory route on their own, and they're having to learn how to survive and get food on their own because they're not being taught by the parents. So you're right on. I can add one more thing to that lady's comment. South of us here on the American side of the border, only about 50 miles south, is one of the most interesting tracking records of all. It's a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service trapped a pair of bald eagles, not at the nest site. They trapped them a few miles from the nest site because they didn't want to go into the nest site. This pair had 2 young. So they didn't want to go into the nest site, partly at my advice, because I think that's not good sense. The male and the female both abandoned their kids on the same day. It was the 7th day, if I remember correctly, after they had learned to fly. The male and the female both flew up about 50 miles from where they were in Washington State over White Rock.
That's nice.
Right where we live.
Right.
Then the male carried on north, flew 640 miles or whatever it is to Prince Rupert.
Wow.
And the next 3 days later, it was observed catching herring in Prince Rupert Harbor.
Right.
The female, it's like she said, well, goodbye, Dad, I'm leaving. And she went straight east down the Canadian border. It was almost like she was playing a slalom course with those markers every 2 miles down the border. She went over the Coast Range, the Selkirks, the Monashees, the Purcells. I get those mountain ranges mixed up. Went over the final Rocky Mountain Range, got to the corner of Montana and Alberta, and then followed the east side of the Rockies north,
Right.
all the way up to to Dawson City. Then she headed out across the Great Plains to Great Slave Lake, where one of our other birds right now is. The one that's if you're looking at
the
our
orange
map,
one, yeah.
it's the orange one. She went to the same lake as that bird is gone, but she was at the other end, observed catching squawfish on that lake. They both arrived back in Skagit. I think it was on October the 9th, on the same day, and they'd been on 2,000-mile migrations, 1,500 miles apart, and got home on the same day. I mean, there's some marvelous tales about these. We just want to know more about these kinds of stories. They're kind of awesome.
Oh, this is an interesting question here from Anne-Marie D. Again, with respect to breeding adults, do you feel a backpack-wearing bird will still be desirable as a mate? Actually, it's a great question.
Yeah,
you know?
it is.
Yeah.
I have a feeling it won't make the least bit of difference. If you have people in jail, you find out that they still mate. But so a backpack. So there's
a female with a big backpack, and then the male.
And the male gets on. It may help him hold on.
Oh, okay.
I mean, let's face it. The challenge when you watch the mating is him balancing on his back. Maybe this will help him hold on. I don't know. Maybe we'll end up with a group of eagles that develop a sixth claw or something for hooking onto the harness. Oh, no, I'm joking.
Oh, this is a good one also this is about the landfill, and I know you're very much involved in the moment with this. Kathy Brady asks, when eagles go to landfills, how do they know that it's safe to eat?
Well, that's a complex
question.
Yes, and I mean, it implies that when Kathy perhaps picks up her dinner at a corner store, I hate to ask you, Kathy, how do you know that we're
how do you know it's safe?
One of the things is you depend upon the government having tested your food, which, of course, if you're on the American side of the border, you know the government's just done away with testing your food, but that's just a recent thing. Most places, people have to have faith in the government to provide safe food.
Right.
I mean, there's no other option in this day and age. You eat what you get out of the store. And if the government hasn't determined it to be safe, the same thing is, if we allow their natural food to be contaminated, then we're contaminating them. I mean, the salmon that are fishing out on the open ocean are probably not very safe, to be honest with you. I would not eat salmon because they're coming from the open ocean, which to a large extent is got a pretty high contamination level. And so I personally wouldn't eat salmon, but that's what our eagles have. They've basically evolved, if you're talking about West Coast eagles, 6 months of the year, most of our eagles eat dead salmon. They go, when the salmon start to die in Alaska, which is in June, the surplus, the eagles that are able to move around, that are not attached to a breeding ground, start to go to South Alaska around Ketchikan, because that's the some of the early southern dying off of spawned out salmon. And so our eagles go up there from June, July, August, September, October. These eagles are spending 6 months of the year eating dead salmon. It's not until it's either A, frozen under the ice, and then the eagles move south and get our salmon through December and January, and occasionally into February. So for a huge part of the year, these birds are living on this dead and dying food source. Now, your point is well taken. Is the food at the landfills any better quality, or is it worse quality than they're getting in the rivers?
That's a great question.
That's Kathy, I mean, I would like to know the answer to that. There have been studies done on the food source at landfills. Most of it, of course, it's almost 100% of the food that's at the landfills was human food.
Right.
And so most cases, it's the same food you have eaten. Now, it may be a little older and rotten, but older and rotten, it doesn't mean anything to a vulture-type bird like an eagle. They're designed to eat rotting meat. That's their system. So the rotting part isn't a problem. Whether they get poisons out of it or pesticides out of it is really important and serious. But are they getting it out of the salmon or the cod or whatever else, or out of a dead deer, a winter-killed deer,
or from a blueberry field or whatever? Yes.
Well, that's even probably worse. Is getting a rodent out of a blueberry field where the rodent has just been killed with a rodenticide. So your concern is a good one. It's certainly a concern of ours. But to be honest, I suspect the quality of food in most remote, or even our downtown, our big city, landfills is not greatly different in quality than it is in the wilderness.
Well,
now, one of the problems is, but it's a problem everywhere, it's not just the landfills, is a lot of people poison rodents. They poison coyotes. They poison. Some of those poisons are then transmittable from the dead animal to a poisoned coyote or a poisoned bear, and then the eagle, and it goes up the chain.
Up the chain, whatever you want to say.
That's right. So those are certainly concerns, but I would think of the thousands and thousands of tons of food that's dumped into a human landfill. There's probably less poison in it than there is out in a farmyard area where there could be more poisons put out for rodents or foxes or whatever other people have poisons for. So if you have a concern of this, please be one of those people who gets these poisons and rodenticides out of our system totally, because they're all going to end up in the waterways, polluting the oceans of the world. And if I make one point today, it's about migration of things. It's really about the migration of our waters. When I went to school, I was taught there were 7 oceans and 7 continents.
And now,
well, of course, there's not 7 oceans. That's total BS. There's one ocean. Well, it's total BS. There's one ocean. And the water that came down the Thames River went into parts of the North Sea.
You're right. You're
and parts that went down the Nile went into the Mediterranean, and parts that went down, particulate matter that went down the Amazon went into the Atlantic. What went down the Yangtze or the Nile or the Delhi, what do you call rivers in India? It all ends up in the sea, and every 9 to 13 years it passes Vancouver. So it's one ocean. It's constantly intermixing. So wherever the poison goes into the sea, it lasts forever, and it keeps staying there, and it passes by your house or your waterway, because that's the way it is.
Yeah, well, so that it's a great question. I think you answered that incredibly well. I'm glad you answered also so critical. So David, next question here from Science 62. By the way, thank you so much, Science 62, for your generous donation. The same goes to Maxine. I hope I get all the names here. I know there was also who was also there. There was of course Osprey Mama, and there was one more. So thank you for all the kind donations. I just want to say very generous of you. And let's jump to Science 62's question. When putting the tracking on the birds, do you know whether it's a male or female? And you test for that.
Well,
right?
you're absolutely right.
Yes.
If it was a really small male, he's going to be in the 5.5, 6 pound, 7, 8 pound level. But you can get males that are 9 pounds.
Yes.
And you can get females that go 14.5, 13, 12, 11, 9, maybe even a bit thin. A small female might be 8 pounds. So there is an overlap. There is a formula that various people have done about studies showing the certain measurements of the relationship of the length of the foot to the
of course, exactly.
And they have said, well, you can put this on this side of the line, you've got a female on this side. But there's certainly a difference between the big Alaska birds and the more southern, smaller birds. So, and we're in the middle. I mean, we're getting southern birds here, we think, and we know that from the Louisiana. We
Right.
got a bird from Louisiana, the southern population. And we have these big Alaska birds. The Fish and Wildlife Branch gave me an eagle the other day, 14 pounds, 8 ounces. That's huge. I had never personally
Right.
caught a bird that big. The biggest I caught was just over 12 pounds.
Whoa.
14 pounds, 8 ounces. That's a huge, huge female eagle. But to finish the question, we do take a feather and a bit of blood, and we're having DNA
So
done.
there you go.
So we will get an absolute measurement of a number of things, but one will be DNA for sexing.
There you go. Okay, now an important question actually from Terry Green. How do you catch an adult or sub-adult? And that's why I put the picture up there. So maybe, David, you can elaborate a little bit how you actually catch them.
Well, we try not to. I don't want every kid
No.
or little old lady
No,
who's
don't
watching
do-
going out and catching eagles. I mean,
No, that's not. You
if
need a
there's any
permit.
little
for-
old ladies wanting to go and do it, come and see me, because I'll take you out.
There you go. So this is also a dating site, by the way. David Hancock.
There you
is-
go. So there's a lot of ways of catching. There's a lot of ways, Christian, to catch eagles. One of the easy ways is to put nooses out around
Right.
bait. You're giving me a bad time. I can see that.
Okay, go on.
So putting nooses around the bait, but they're so cagey, these eagles.
Right.
You can put nooses. If they see the noose, that's it. They don't want to have anything to do with it. We made some available for like weeks around, and they wouldn't bother with the bait. But then we put the bait in the water.
Okay.
And the eagles, the nooses were underwater, and they were tromping around trying to get at this salmon, and they would get caught. Now we have another method. We have a net. It's we call it a cannon net, but it's just fired by little blank 22 shells, and it shoots a net about 20 feet wide by 20 feet, and so we could put a deer carcass, a calf carcass, salmon in front of it, and then fire it over top. And the nice thing about that is, you only fire it when you got the kind of bird you want under it. With the nooses, we caught 21 eagles, but only 4 were adults.
Wow.
And I
So there
wanted
you
to
go.
put because
So
we
these-
don't have.
That's what you're seeing here in the picture. That's the noose.
That's yes. In fact, in this case, it wasn't a salmon
It
used
wasn't
as
a salmon,
bait. It was a duck.
Yeah, right.
Somebody gave us a whole bunch of ducks that had been used in pesticide analysis, and so they took a part of the liver and the heart and and we got the rest of the ducks for bait for the eagles. But I normally would put a salmon on that kind of net thing there. So yeah, we have the ability to catch them a number of different ways.
Okay, gosh, we got so many questions. Thank you so much, everyone, for submitting so many questions. Weight, I think the weight of the packs we already addressed, Maxine. We did that, and how long they stay on there. That we addressed. This is an interesting question from Sherry M. At the end of 4 to 5 years, will you try collecting the birds or removing the trackers? That's
we would. Yeah, it's a very good question.
Yeah,
and we would like to do that. And one of the things that will enable us to work on this kind of thing is that, particularly if we have a bird that we know where it is actually going to spend part of its time, like around a certain nest, we might be able to then go out and re-catch the bird. Birds that come by this landfill, it's possible we would catch them again another year. So we may well. In fact, about the third bird we caught was actually a bird that was already banded. It had been caught. In fact, it was. They thought it hit a wire, about 30, 40 miles from here on Bowen Island. It was taken as a wounded bird to Owl, our big rehab center that we all support here. And after a few months, it was released, but with a band on the leg. Well, when we caught this bird, it had the band. So while we were holding it in our hand, we phoned Ottawa, that is the central registry, and found out who banded it. We got his phone number, and he happened to be the Vancouver bander who was the one who, in that year, which is some time ago now, had banded it out at Owl. And he said, yes, go ahead, put a tracker on it. And so we did. And that bird is now still flying around. Now, that bird didn't breed. It's rather interesting. So we don't quite know whether it didn't breed because it was somewhat incapacitated because it had on, its wing didn't work quite right. Which is the problem it had when it was sent into owl. But it's part of the bigger overall study. We're getting a database on how these birds do. When we caught it, it was big and fat, so it was doing fine.
Okay, now we're at question number 29 already. So there's some duplicates, so I'm skipping some, but Jackie Porter asks here, what is the furthest that you've ever found a bird to travel?
Oh, well, we just started this. So our very first birds are now just going north. And
what distance about?
Well, they've gone from here to Alaska, which is 1,000 miles.
That's a lot. I mean, come on.
So and this is a really big but. The bird that left our cell tower connections on the if they look at a map of Alaska, the first channel it goes from the inside passage to the outside, right up at the top end of the inside passage. That bird then disappeared in calling home, and we think it's gone further north because that's what the direction was going, and further north is into the center part of Alaska, maybe even the North Slope. So this bird might have gone another 600, 700, 800 miles, but it couldn't go initially because that land would all have been frozen solid, and it waited at the icy straits there for nearly a month before it disappeared. And so we think it was waiting until those northern lakes melted out. And so it's very possible this is a far northern nesting bird. And if it succeeds in coming back again, it's going to download thousands of points, and we're going to know everywhere that bird is.
Scientist.
Yeah, well, that's what this is all about. We will get that data point, so every place it's been in the previous 3-4 months.
Yeah, this is a similar question again. Maybe you can quickly answer this. Beach Girl 75 is asking, any plan to put trackers on a mated pair?
Well, we'd love to do that. Yes, if you got a mated pair, we'll do that. I mean, the next 3 birds that we catch here in the valley, because we only have 3 trackers, and I heard some of you people making donations. If they ever want to donate to helping track these birds and learn more of these questions, donate to the Betta Project, because that would be kind of wonderful. So the next 3 trackers are going on, we hope, local breeding birds. When you catch a bird at a site like this, you don't really know where the bird is coming from. I mean, it could have come from that nest nearby. It could have come from another nest. I mean, these birds so interact with each other. They cover such huge distances. I mean, I've got 480 nests that I know of, pairs in the Fraser Valley. I mean, that's a huge number of eagles. And which one is at which nest when you catch it? How do you really know? Well, we will know once we put the tracker on it, because we'll know what nest it goes back to. So that's
here comes a nice question. GoPro Creations. By the way, you're the other one who donated. Thank you very much. Now I remember GoPro Creations. Thank you for that. Any concern that the transmitter could cause physical problems for the Eagle? Because he says RF signals can cause issues. Oh.
Well, sure, good question. It's another one of these challenges that people are trying to analyze. They've had some of these trackers, different kinds of trackers on birds now for over 20 years. In fact, I guess it's over 30 years. So we don't think that's the case. So what more can I tell you? It's not an easy. It's not there's not an obvious cause, because it would have been detected. Is there a very subtle cause? Heart, the scientists were all concerned about these things. These are harder to determine. But I appreciate the question. It's something that we're all concerned about.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, it is.
Well, thanks GoPro Creations for that. And again, thanks for all. I know you've been on the show many times. It's good to see you back. Sanchez Z. What type of battery pack? Any chance of overheating? Now, the reference, of course, is to all the overheating that we had of these very compact batteries on planes and why they're forbidden and so on. That's what it's relating to.
No, and I won't even make silly jokes about it. But no, there's no record of that. It's that the battery part is minuscule. I mean, that's why I gather a battery that is sealed up. We're told. I mean, we start our signals the day we get our battery. We energize them and put them out. It takes about 5 days to energize them completely. And so for the first days of the life of the pack, we're reading where they are, which is at our office. And so until we put them on a bird and they leave, all the registry points are at their office. And we've never detected any change. And people have been running these batteries, testing them under varying circumstances for many years. And it doesn't appear that there's a meaningful risk or a risk that anybody's even been able to identify. And
here's another one, Glen Hazelwoody. It's a little bit different question, but we've had this before. Glen Hazelwoody, I read that in Canada there's no law that forbids citizens from owning feathers like in the US.
Well, I would be careful in answering that, and I want to be really careful.
Okay.
If you're a citizen of British Columbia, you may own a feather. But you got to be, the United States is paranoid. They are the country that paid the bounty on shooting eagles. So, but when they quit shooting eagles and paying $2 for every pair of eagle legs, they went the other extreme. And they show less kind of common sense about most things. They go in an extreme direction. Well, it's pretty obvious. So owning a feather, it depends on where you are.
Right.
Do not own a feather in the United States. Do not try and carry a feather that you might own and legally possess in British Columbia, carrying it across the border into the United States, because it'll just cause you to lose your car and go to jail. But Canadians generally can have a feather. Most provinces are pretty good about ownership of a feather. Now, and I don't know every individual law, and that's why I'm wanting to be careful. I don't know about every law in every province. They're all different. But in British Columbia, you can own a feather. So if you go out, whether you're a native or a white, and you find a feather on the beach where it's been molted, because, I mean, the birds molt thousands of feathers every year, so it's not as though it harms the birds at all. You can pick up a feather and you can treasure it. And that's how our West Coast natives used to deal with bald eagle. They never killed eagles on our coast for their feathers. They would find them and treasure them. And I always remember the Grand Chief, Dr. Rose Charlie, who, bless her soul, she's now passed. But she's the one we toured through the school systems for 2 months. And she'd talk about, as natives have rights, they also have responsibility. And she pointed out that natives may have the right to own an eagle feather, as white people do, but it doesn't give you the right to kill them.
Right, okay.
So in British Columbia, it applies to all people. Natives can't kill the birds, but if you find a feather, you're allowed to keep it. If you find a whole bird, you turn it in to the government.
Ah, there you go. Okay.
But if you find a feather, you're allowed to keep it.
Okay, so I'm going to try and close it off, because then what I would like you to do is to ask 1 or 2 quiz questions, then we have someone dialing in to answer, and then they can win a picture. Okay, so that's always nice. So I'll give you those questions to you, but just let's. I'm going to just allow these 2 more questions from 2 different Cathys here. One from Kathy Santoro. Yeah, that's right. How do you catch 2 birds at once? And the other one from Kathy Newton. I wasn't sure if this was asked before, but why do some eagles migrate a long way and others once stay quite close? And if so, do young eagles migrate so very far? That's a...
those are all wonderful questions, and they're all questions that we ask over and over again, and why we have the Beta Project is to kind of try and answer exactly those questions, Kathy. Yeah, they're marvelous. I'll come back and I'll tell you some of the answers a year from now. Some of the answers. We'll be getting a better understanding of the answering of those questions. The other question was about, how do you catch more than 2 at once? How do you catch 2?
How do you do it,
Well, one day, you weren't there and the other guys weren't there. I was by myself, and I thought, I'm just going to throw some salmon out in order to get some photos, because I'm always so busy, I never take pictures. So I was putting the salmon on, and I thought, I'll just throw out the noose carpet with it. Well, I turned my back, literally. I went up on the hill to get birds flying in. By the time I saw one get caught and jump, and I realized, oh, so I came rushing down the hill to get it, drove up, and I had 4. Not 2. I had 4.
And you were on your own.
And I was by myself. It was an exciting.
Oh my goodness! What a challenge.
Time. It was an exciting time. But it's like most things in life. You learn how to deal with these things. I have dealt with eagles all my life. So as I drove up, they were jumping. But the minute I got out of the car, I spoke quietly. I moved slowly.
Right.
Not one single eagle, and they're all caught on the same pad. They're fanned out in 4 directions. Not one bird from when I got out of the car and got them all out and unhooked and tied up and wrapped up, piled up, ready to band.
Right.
Not one bird flapped a wing.
Right.
So part of what we're talking about here is you can catch more than one bird because they're eager to get at the bait. That's the bottom line. They're eager to get at the bait at times. And so getting them in hand is a relatively simple procedure as long as you're not panicking. You move slowly and deliberately, and it's like anything else. You learn how to do it. You can reach out to the stars.
Yeah, but it's but it's everything. I mean, it looks very easy, but it is actually counterintuitive. I found the way you do things, because the talons are so dangerous, right? And that's the whole point.
You get control of the feet.
Yeah, that is not easy, David. It's not easy.
Well,
no.
it's not that difficult if you know how to do it.
Yeah, well, okay.
That's the point. Yeah.
He knows.
It's like lots of things.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to throw in some questions. I'm going to put in a number now, which is again a bit shaky. This number. I don't know why this always happens, but now it doesn't work at all. Now the number's coming in. It's flashing again. It's going on and off. Sorry about that.
I don't know what we're talking about,
but this is. Don't worry. They're going to dial in, and what you're going to do now, David, is ask a question. So you're going to think of a quiz question that is related to this topic.
Absolutely. I got the first question. Absolutely. In fact, I am going to give a copy of my Eagle book to the winner.
Oh, this is a commitment. This is fantastic. Much nicer than my pictures.
Your pictures are much more valuable. So
This is marvelous.
The first lesser contribution.
So we're going to have 3. Are you going to give out 3 books or 1 book and then 2 photos from me? What's the deal here?
Well, you say how you want to do it.
Well, I usually give 3 questions. So
why don't we make it a special thing? I'll give 3 books, and you can give to the final 2 questions. You were going to give 2, so I'll give a book to all of them. And
wow.
You can throw in
I'll throw in my pictures anyway. So this is a very generous night. Those 88 who are still watching, this is your big opportunity where you're going to win a book that's going to be shipped to Honolulu or wherever.
Wherever it is. Yeah.
By air freight. No.
I'm joking. I'll send the one out, and you can put the other one in with your picture.
Okay.
So you're going to give them a digital image. Is that what you're going to do?
Yeah, I'll give them a digital image.
Okay.
But I'm just trying to, I cannot understand for my life why it's always so problematic to get in a number here. But there's something wrong with this software. So sorry about that. I'm just going to, before David calls the number out, I'm going to quickly tell you the number. I'm going to try.
The number what?
Yeah, that they dial in. 425-223-4960. That's 425. Going to put my 223-4960. That's the number. Okay, so just remember the number 429. They put it in the quiz in the section. So I'm going to get David back in the picture now. Now it actually stopped flashing finally. Okay, so
I stabilized that. You'll notice that.
You stabilize everything in life, David. Fantastic. What would I do? And the question is.
Well, the first question is, this is just a totally unbiased question. The first person to phone in and know what my foundation website URL is gets a book.
Oh my goodness, that is so easy. I cannot believe it.
But then they're getting a book that's the easy book.
You lucky
the
people.
First person to get who knows the website.
So you won't be able to hear them because of the echo, but I'm going to wait for your calls now. So do call in. That's the number there. And the question is not David's age, which would have been a difficult one. It's the question is, what's the Hancock? Oh, sorry. No, I nearly said, well, what's the website called?
And what is the URL of our
What's the URL?
Hancock?
Yeah, Hancock something, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
That's a
Our
really
foundation.
difficult
It's a
one.
not-for-profit.
Yeah. Oh, here comes a call already. So let's see if we can get this.
Oh, I thought they were going to write these in. It's actually designed that I didn't realize it was going to be a phone call.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello,
Hello, who's there, please?
this is Susan North, Dr. Sasse.
Oh, Susan North is there. She's just been asking. She's on the
Hi.
show. Very nice to have you, Susan.
Oh my God, I got through. I hope I know the answer.
You know the answer. So do you know the question? Do you remember the question? Did you hear the question?
No, I didn't. I had to turn off.
Okay, you did not hear the question. That's okay. So again, David, can you just repeat the question?
What is the question?
It's a very technical question.
Yeah.
What
Oh,
is
God.
the URL
Yes.
for our foundation website?
There you go. What is the URL, the link for David's foundation? Do you know what it's called?
Is it the Hancock Wildlife Foundation.org?
HancockWildlifeFoundation.org.
Nope.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
No, he got that
Okay.
one wrong. Sorry, Susan. That's
All right.
Was
So-
a good try.
that was a good try. You're very close, but it's not that. It's not that, and it has to be accurate. You got
Oh,
this is
yeah.
a big prize
You-
because
you-
you win a book too.
You wouldn't have got to the
Yeah.
foundation if
Yeah.
you put that in.
Okay, so dial in again, please. This is this question. Okay, here comes a new question. Hello.
Hi,
Hi, whom am I speaking with, please?
Kathy Santoro.
Kathy Santoro, that's one of your Kathys here who has been
I know
asking
lots of Kathys,
questions.
yes,
No,
yes.
but she's been asking, thank you so much for asking questions. Kathy, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Coventry, Connecticut. Well, we actually have a eagle nest, but nobody knows where it is.
You're in Connecticut, and they have an eagle nest there. That's very
Yeah,
nice.
they have lots of them.
Well, so now we're going to throw a question at you, Kathy. So, David, can you please repeat the question?
Well, the question is, what is the URL for our foundation?
What is the URL for his foundation?
There's all these people waiting to send donations in.
donations,
They
oh,
need to
God.
know what the answer is.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Okay, so
It's if I remember from last summer when you had your open house, it's HancockWildlife.org.
HancockWildlife.org.
Correct.
You got it. And she remembers the open house. You remember the auction that
Yes.
I ran?
Oh, yes.
There's
good
people
for her.
who put donations in. Thank you so much, Kathy. That was fantastic. So you have won a book and a picture, which we are going to dial then. Well done. That's incredible. And I think David will also put some...
We need to know what her address is to mail
yes,
the book.
absolutely. Thank you very much. So my team will definitely pick up your address. Don't forget, Kathy, please send an email to, they'll put the email in the chat. I think you know that. So we catch your address, and then David, maybe you can put a word or two or a phrase in for her.
There you go.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for taking part. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
It
that's
was
where
great
they can
talking to
also
you.
go to watch live eagles, because that's our live streaming site where we pioneered all these cameras.
Here comes the next question.
It's yours.
No, you have to. You're asking all. You're the guest.
Okay.
Wait. Hello. Just wait.
Hello,
Hello. With whom am I speaking, please?
Sherry Mathis,
Sherry. Oh, Sherry. Where are you calling from?
Edmonton, Alberta.
Oh, we have a Canadian, Edmonton. Okay, so you got it. Here
Yes.
comes David's question for Sherry. Question number 2. You can win a book and a picture. So, what's the question, David?
Well, the question is, what is the normal age at which most bald eagles first breed?
What is the normal age at which most bald eagles breed?
Between about 5 years old.
About 5
when
years
they
old.
become adult.
Good.
Good,
Yeah.
well done. You're spot on. You've won a book, and David's very delighted that you've answered it. And so am I, of course. So a book and a picture goes to you. Thank you, and don't forget to send your email to Sherry. Don't forget.
Yeah, we need the mailing address.
Yeah, no, my team's very good. They'll take care of that. So do give that, and stay on and watch which picture you win. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, one more caller, please. We have one more call. Okay, that's the final caller. Right, let's just... Hello?
Hello.
Hello, with whom am I speaking, please?
Hi, this is Anne Marie D. from Northville, Michigan.
Oh, Anne Marie D., you've also asked questions to from Northville, Michigan. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, you did. Yep, that's right.
Very good. Well, wonderful to have you on the show. Okay, so here comes, I'm going to just blend out the picture of the, please, I'm just saying that to everyone else, don't call anymore, because this is the final chance, and I know you're going to get this right. So,
Okay.
David, please go ahead with your question.
So where in the world
Yes?
are the greatest bald eagle concentrations?
Oh, wow. This is it. Where in the world are the greatest bald eagle concentrations? I know exactly what David's getting at, but I cannot tell you this.
Well, we want her to tell.
Yeah, we want you to
You've
know.
already got one of my books. You don't need a book.
I don't need a book, says
wow.
David.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm really not sure. I'm just like new into the eagle thing, but
Well,
I'm just
try.
going to guess somewhere in Alaska.
Somewhere in Alaska.
No.
That's a surprise.
No.
Sorry, that's a surprise. It's not, Anna Marie. It's not somewhere in Alaska. It's
Okay.
not. But I can't. Well, maybe we can allow one more dialer in, because unfortunately you didn't win that, and we'll wait for one more person to dial in. Well, thank you so much for taking part. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Fine.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. Now I don't know if I just made Kevin upset because oh no, we got one more call. That's great.
Oh, I thought
Hello?
I was going to save my book.
Hello. Hello. With whom am I?
Hello.
With whom am I speaking, please?
You're speaking to Glenn Hazel Woody.
Oh, Glenn Hazel Woody again. She asked so many questions, very good questions, and she's an avid Eagle fan. So
Okay, well, she'll know where the biggest concentrations of eagles are.
So here comes David's question. Where's the biggest concentration of eagles? Do you know where?
Wow, I thought it was Homer, Alaska, but it's not.
It's not Homer, Alaska. I can tell you that right. It was not Alaska. But what other country is there apart from Alaska where there are lots of...
You're
Okay, I'm really bad. Is it Honolulu? Is it...
No, definitely not.
I was joking. So. Any idea?
Where is he now?
Where am I now? Oh my goodness! Now comes the... Well, where is he now, right? So, where am I?
I already have my brain right on it.
Are you still there? Hello?
So we're going to have to tell him. I can
No,
see
wait,
Of
it.
the United States of America.
She thinks... Do you think I'm in the United States of America? I'm close to the border, but I'm not in the United States of the... I'm slightly north of that. So where could that be?
He is in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Yes, Vancouver, British Columbia. Okay, that's right. Now, it is that we've been nodding.
Canada.
Canada, yeah, that's right. So, David, just to elaborate where actually exactly...
Yes,
the biggest
Canada.
concentration of bald eagles ever known is on the Harrison River in British Columbia, which is about 50 miles from where we're sitting.
There you go.
And it's the same group of eagles that move down the valley and come here.
British
over
Columbia.
Where we are in Greater
It
Vancouver.
is British Columbia. So,
It is British Columbia.
So you are going to get half a book and half a picture. No, I'm only joking. No, you're going to get a whole book. You've been wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you anyway, Glenn Hazel Woody, for taking part. And leave your details there, and we're going to spin the wheel now to see which picture you want. Thank you so much. Okay.
So while you're doing that, I'm going to say I'm so pleased to donate these books. Earlier today was addressing 1,360 children at the landfill who came for a big open house, and we gave out a lot of books because we gave one to every school.
Wow. Now we're going to spin the wheel. Okay, so David, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to spin this wheel, and you are going to be the one who tells me when to stop. So here we go, and just say stop at any time.
Oh, well,
For the
such
first
a
winner.
great selection of fantastic images. Stop.
Okay, well, this is an interesting one. This is a very artistic one that I did. This is actually a human eye where I put the eagle in as an eagle eye. So it's a real iris that I took. So this is for the first winner. That is your picture. You're going to get it in high digital resolution, and you can print it out as long as you don't sell it. You can use it for your personal use. Congratulations. Next person.
Now.
Oh, this, you know where this is,
I
David,
do,
right?
I do.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
David introduced me to all this area. This is beautiful on Boundary Bay, beautiful time where you see a young snowy owl. Tell us a bit about the snowy owls that come in.
Well, the snowy owl is an Arctic breeder. It actually only breeds up in above the tree line, big in the upper islands in the Canadian and in the European, Asian Arctic. But they do really well in breeding when there's a big population of lemmings. They produce 6, 8, 9. One year, one family grew 10 young. Well, there's so many young owls in those years, and as winter comes on, they all have to get out of the Arctic, and they immigrate south. And some years, thousands of them move south into central Canada and even down into parts of the United States. And some years, we get 10, 50, maybe 100 here in the Fraser Valley.
Right.
So it's a marvelous bird, and this was 2 or 3 years ago when you took this, and we had quite a good number that year.
We did. And now comes spin number 3, the final one.
Now.
Oh. You know the scene, right?
Not only do I know it, I was down looking at this again
It's so
past
beautiful.
week. This is a photo that you took in Boundary Bay.
Yes.
And this bird was down in the intertidal zone hunting for midshipmen.
Exactly.
And we were supposed to be doing this week a whole sequence with Animal Planet about that. And they were going to have their crew come here this week, and they couldn't finish filming another story, and they had to cancel it. And then they were worried that 2 weeks from now, when they could get here, the midshipmen might be gone. But it's a little tiny fish that spawns in the intertidal zone. They look like bullheads. And the eagles, when I was there 3 days ago on the beach, there were 200 eagles down there feeding on midshipmen.
And now is
I
the
counted
prime,
134 right in front of
time.
me, but there must have been at least 200.
Yeah, that's also where I did the sand shark, remember?
Yes, exactly. They're in the background. The same thing.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for taking part. And thank you.
It was
especially
fun.
For,
thank you.
Well, David, you are marvelous. I mean, if anybody can guess David's age, it's incredible. You know, I mean, that he is so dynamic.
7?
Yeah, something like
6?
that. Yeah. Well, you almost reached my age, right? So, well, it's incredible. You definitely have the heart of a 7 or 6 year old. It's incredible. If I can be like you, David, when I reach 80, if I ever reach 80, I will be absolutely.
It's been fun. Oh, well, it's been a wonderful journey. I've had quite a few migrations.
Incredible.
And I'm hoping to have some more.
Well, anyway, thank you everyone for taking part. And I just wanted to say I'm going to Vancouver. I'm going to.
You're going to Australia.
I'm upside down. I'm going to Australia for the next weeks. I'll be back on the 22nd of June, but I will be trying to do some broadcasts from Australia, especially for the Patreon people. So I will do my best. It's going to be all about astronomy. By the way, I just wanted to say I am now the astronomer in charge for iTelescope, which is fantastic. It's all about telescopes. And tomorrow morning there's a broadcast that I'm doing on Sky Tours. It's all about nebula. Someone who's personally discovered a nebula. It's a completely different channel. If you're interested, I will blend in just below my channel. I'll put in the link, so do look at it. It's a very different world. It's also exciting, just like the Eagle world. And there's such a thing as an Eagle Nebula. Did you know that?
Yes, I've heard of it. Yeah,
Eagle Nebula, isn't it incredible?
Yeah.
So very different world. So I wanted to say thank you to all of you. Wonderful to have David here. And have a wonderful weekend. And let's see if I can find a stop here. Yeah, have a wonderful weekend. And go and photograph many eagles. And congratulations to all the winners. And I just want to quickly say thank you to my team.
And only put good food out in the landfills.
Only put good. Thank you to my team here. That is Nicole, Suzanne, Donna, and Gianni, my wonderful team in the background, always working and doing so well. So that ends our show. Thank you for tuning in and have a wonderful weekend.